before you start digital painting, you need a paint brush that's digital. We're going to try and simplify it a little bit because in general it's pretty complicated. All right, let's start. So let's take a look at the paint brushes here. And so there's really not I mean, the paint brushes are kind of self-explanatory. And the more that we get into customizing your brushes, know that all of this can be interchanged. So the big way to look at this is not like that. So you essentially have shapes or tips, or they could be pictures, right? And the best way, and then we have shapes, pictures, tips, and then we have adjustments. That's how the brush engine is going to work. What do I mean by that? So if I go under here under brush, and let's say I'm looking at this brush, it's got a lot of settings. It's going to look really intimidating when we do this. So this little wrench icon down here that's in the corner, the wrench icon looks like this. You're going to click onto that. Now the one next to it, that resets everything if you mess something up. And this is your subtool detail. We're going to go all about how to make custom brushes, but I want you to see that there are a lot of settings here. Not every setting is turned on. Not every setting needs to apply. But you see this? This is your brush tip shape. And so it's giving us this shape, and we can adjust it depending on what adjustments are there. Just like I showed you guys before, if something is checked, that means that it is active. So there are going to be two states. There is active and there is inactive when it comes to the categories. And for the most part, Sketchbook Pro, you can see it highlight in blue, or this light bluish color, or it might be teal. I don't know, I'm colorblind. So this is how you change your brushes. This is how you make a bunch of different kinds of brushes. But essentially what you want to do, what I think is a good idea, is just to go over the watercolor brushes. Do this. Watercolor brushes they're just different watercolor brushes. Some of them do some smearing stuff. Oh, this is a blender. And so just because you don't have like blend selected, some of these watercolor brushes, some of the brushes are blending brushes. And so you just got to kind of play around with it. I'm not a big watercolor artist. I mostly like this opaque watercolor. The settings on this stuff is a little bit different. When they did the update, and I guess that's another heads up to you guys, sometimes when they do the updates, some of your settings might be different. And I think the reason why my settings are different is because they overhauled the brush engine, meaning there wasn't any dual brushes until now. So like all of this where it says the two, these are the dual brushes. So you click onto that and it'll change it into a brush, or change it into a dual brush, which will change the way that it looks and behaves. So this means that you can now, just like Photoshop, just go in and get nutty and crazy with this stuff. Now, they give you, there's realistic watercolor. So I have realistic watercolor, which I don't use this a whole lot. But I would just say to just play around, see if there's something that you like. Because you may not like it. Like, I don't like any of these. I could probably delete this entire category and it won't bother me. So this thick paint over here, I have a lot of oil paints over here. And I'm probably going to have to reset a lot of this stuff. I really do. And we have India ink. So these are some other ones that are over here. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because you may not be a digital painter. But if you are, there's a lot. The next section is going to be way more beneficial to you, where we go real in depth with the brush engine and go step by step, showing you what everything is. And we're going to take that into sections because it's a lot. But I want to get you guys up and working. So these are the brushes. They're pretty self-explanatory. Play around with them. You can make some adjustments over here. You can adjust the size, the amount of paint. You can decide what you want to turn on and off. And you know what? It's the same thing with which right underneath is the airbrush tool. And so your airbrush tool, you can go ahead and use that. There's a bunch of different versions of the airbrush tool. There's the highlighting airbrush tool. You can have some glowing effects. But when we get into the brush section, this is where we'll start to change things and manipulate things. Because right now, a lot of this will not make sense to you because the brush engine is so big. And underneath here, well, I'll talk about the pattern brush, the decoration brush as it's called. But I'll talk about that a little in the next video. So.